There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Grant Project Showcase, which is our final closing event for the first ever, the pilot launch of ALG Week. Thank you so much for participating with us all week long, whenever you could. And thank you for joining us here in this final closing session. This is, of course, hosted by Affordable Learning Georgia. And if you go to the next slide. I'm Nikita Afaha. I'm going to go over our agenda as well as a couple of other brief introductions before we get started. We're going to get started today with a quick little OER ALG overview. I'm going to run through that for you just because I want to make sure we're kind of all on the same page of what we're here talking about. And then we have a set of guests for you, some lightning talks from our grantees, and we're going to spotlight their projects. After that, I'm going to introduce it and turn it over to Jeff Gallant, who is our director. He'll get to talk to you a little bit about how you can get involved, and we'll go through some Q&A and closing remarks, things like that. All right, next slide. So there again, I'm Nikita Afaha, and I'm the program manager for Affordable Learning Georgia. And next, I'm going to go over with you a quick review of ALG and OER in general. Next slide. All right, so my internet has been a little slow, so I'm going to turn off my camera to see if I can maintain a good connection and go from there. All right, so really quickly, what are OER? Just for anyone who is new here and not really know what this is all about in ALG Week, OER, open educational resources that are learning, teaching, and research materials in any format and medium that reside in the public domain or under copyright that have then been released under an open license. And open licenses are things that permit no cost access, reusability, repurpose, adaptation, and redistribution by others. So you'll hear us talking about open quite a bit. It's not that people have lost their copyright, but they've given permission, released it under an open license so that you can use it in many ways. Next slide. And so why open? Why is OER, open educational resources, ALG, open access, why is this a thing? It's because access can be a barrier. When it comes to students and their success, there can be kind of a barrier. And access barriers can include cost, textbook costs. There's a human cost to that, rising cost of textbooks, and that includes something that students may say, I didn't buy groceries for 2 weeks, so I could buy $400 worth of textbooks. Or a faculty member that may say textbook cost just might be the last expense that makes or breaks our student. And these aren't just random quotes. These are actual things that have come through the university system of Georgia. We have taken these quotes from studies that have been done here. I think I've left off the reference list, but we have references for these informations. And including the human cost, we have a behavioral shift because of that. We noticed that over half, there was a survey done at the Florida virtual campus over textbooks that said over half of all students who do not acquire their textbooks can be due to the access barriers that they experience. And when you get 50% of students not accessing their texts in the way that they need to, that has an academic fallout. This same survey referred to about 40% of students who would avoid registering for a course because of this access barrier. 25% may have dropped a course because of this access barrier, and 33% will have earned a lower grade because of access barriers. All right, next slide. So what does that mean? So the engine of affordability is one of those ways to help the access barriers that are plaguing our students. And that is where open educational resources come in. And open educational resources really work on a life cycle loop that's really, you're going to hear a lot about that today in our lightning talks. First, it starts with our expert teams, right? With expert teams who create resources, materials that can be used in class. Other faculty adopt these resources through the open licensing. And then those resources are shared openly again through different means in the classrooms. And then new teams who've adopted them can now remix and revise them as well. And the loop continues. And this loop affords zero cost to students when these materials are shared. These are free textbooks to use, free textbooks for these students to retain. And that also means that there's no subscriptions or accounts to be worried about, as well as the fact that the open licenses will allow hyper-relevant customization. And as we know, things change quickly around here, and being able to customize open educational resources for your students to current events is really, really helpful. Next slide. So enter ALG, Affordable Learning Georgia. In 2013, Affordable Learning Georgia was piloted under the Galileo Initiative to kind of to look at this affordability issue. And in 2014, we became an actual department and was given the mission or adopted the mission and the vision that you see here. That Affordable Learning Georgia is to promote student success and levels the playing field for all students through supporting the adoption, adaptation, and creation of affordable and open educational resources by, that's right, our USG faculty and professional staff. And you're going to get to hear from them today. We're really excited about that. Our vision, of course, is for affordable and accessible, high quality educational resources for every USG student in every course. Next slide. So what does ALG offer that the changes that we need? We offer the transformation grants, continuous improvement grants, and research grants that have the goals that you see here. And what you're going to hear from today are our grantee project teams who have taken advantage of one or more of these grants and will be able to share with you the impact. Next slide. And what have we looked at as far as an aggregated impact? As of spring 2026, 208 million total student savings have been generated through this grant program. And that means we have affected 1.6 million or more, indeed, thanks for the claps, for students who've been directly impacted by the use of affordable materials through these projects. And again, that's because we've been able to fund over 700 projects, and all 25 USG institutions are represented in these 700 projects. Next slide. So that's why I moved quickly through that, because I want to get you now to talking to or hearing from our grantees. I'm really excited to share 6 stories with you guys today, or they're going to. Projects are going to give you a quick overview and just take about 5 minutes each to spotlight their project. And at the end of the lightning talk, I think my agenda was a little bit out of order. We'll have question and answers. You'll be able to talk to our lightning panel as much as you need for a few minutes, and then we'll let Jeff take over with the remaining agenda items. So I'm not going to interrupt between each one. We're going to just allow them to introduce themselves and start with their slides. So first up is Georgia State. And so Jeff, you want to slip to the next slide and we'll get there.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sutandra Sarkar from Georgia State University, and I'm going to present our project on transforming pre-calculus for all, access and success. Next slide, please. So I think it's a good idea for us to introduce, definitely I'm grateful to have my colleagues who participated in this project, Dr. Rishi Subedi and Dr. Bosu Choi. And we are a 3-member team, and it's a good idea for me to share a little bit of background for our delivery. So we kind of eliminated the traditional lecture model, and we introduced the modified Emporium model in a lab setting for large enrollment prerequisite course of pre-calculus. It's been going on for quite some time, but we needed this transformation, and which definitely is a great opportunity for us to implement some of the things we had in mind and made the changes in the program. So we utilize the software MyLab Math homework system, and our students meet in that lab for 105 minutes, which is for quite some time. So they get to learn the concept part, and as well as they are working hands-on with the help of our graduate and undergraduate lab assistants. And of course, we, the faculty, are there to help them immediately. And we serve about 1,600 students per year just for this particular course. And each section holds like 90 students. So it's a quite a bit of challenge we used to encounter. So next slide, please, where I think we became really, really fortunate to have this incredibly great support from ALG that allowed us to contribute to our student success in a meaningful way. From our earlier experiences, we have noticed that students had difficulties keeping up with their courses due to access. Basically, it was expensive, um, you know, uh, uh, the expense that involved their validating their access to the course material after the expiration of their 14-day trial, right? So that definitely impaired our success in the pre-calculus program because it was a prerequisite course, so kind of not we were not able to move everyone. But with this project, we were able to introduce the low-cost interactive homework platform, and definitely we supplemented our course with a plethora of resources with PowerPoint. We created PowerPoints, videos, customized to the level of even examples and the concept part, as well as we utilize some active engagement learning tools. We utilize the iClicker cloud, and so we built a lot of those types of questions so that we can actively engage them. And with this initiative, we were able to prepare our students from day one and keeping them active and engaged throughout the semester. Next slide, please. So this lower cost, higher outcomes definitely redefined our pre-calculus delivery, and we transitioned into this affordable course material. We created the customized instructional videos, and as I mentioned about the engagement tools we utilize, that definitely gave us a different type of canvas where we can work with the students uh, directly and giving them immediate feedback, letting them understand, the concept is important and how it can be related to real life experiences. That also is kind of introduced through this project. And what we noticed is definitely the engagement as well as ABC success rates and the attrition, reduction in attrition. So students are when they are coming on board, they stayed throughout the semester. So we definitely have achieved our goal of, kind of DFW rate. So we are not worried anymore about the attrition or access to the course material. So they are involved in the synchronous, asynchronous, as online courses as well as in person. Next slide, please. So we do get to see the long-lasting impact, right? What we have learned from this delivery is that constant communication among the team members. Definitely, when we are going to implement something new, how we are going to deliver. Then also we learned another big lesson of staying on top of the budget part, which is working with the finance officer and making sure the centers that are involved outside our own team, basically the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, an online environment team who helped us uh, making our plans together, verification, and kind of also the multimedia team who made our videos very professionally delivered. So those things are definitely came in handy, but making sure the budget is utilized properly and also for our own improved content delivery, the support was meaningful as well. So, I think it's a good idea for us to remember that we do the check-ins regularly. And we do have just a few recommendations for our future project teams that they may want to consider the cross-disciplinary experiences in the early programs. So aligning the content with real-world context, especially maybe sometimes, space-based content sometimes generate a lot of interests. So that's exactly what we would like to work in our project expansion. If we have the opportunity to introduce, and that's where we are heading towards, that the space-based real-world integration for collaborative projects, and that might be something to do with our, like Atlanta, making Atlanta downtown as a prime resource of information, and utilizing in the pre-calculus context, as well as maybe something to do with the signal patterns or music and math. That kind of stuff might generate interests among the students of different disciplines. And we also plan to utilize some of the features what we think will be very valuable for kind of, if we can continue something like a text-based communication for the students, where simple reminders, even if we have the announcements going, emails sent, not always they are paid, those things get the attention, but the text-based nudges might be helpful, and sometimes from time to time timely intervention of quick check-ins like quiz me type activities through text could be a real good, um, awakening their awareness that where they stand, maybe they need a little extra help through tutoring or something like that. Those are our future plans. And I think that's it. So next, please, the next slide, please. Yeah, so that's where we are. We try to, encourage our students to see the beautiful world through math lens, and hopefully this is making a difference in our delivery. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, you may ask us later. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm not, excuse me, I'm not going to come in between each one, but I just wanted to stop here to thank you for that. And also to let everyone know, on the panelists, we have a little cushion time today, but if you happen to be at your 5-minute max, I'll go ahead and throw up my raise hand just to give you an idea that you should wrap up in another minute or two. And you didn't go over, maybe by 1 minute. It's okay. Just to let
Sorry
you know
about
that you'll
that.
wrap up when as soon as you can. But we have a little cushion today, so I think we'll be okay.
Thank you. Thank
Just
you
wanted
very
to make
much.
that note before we moved on to the next person. And that's kind of very, very impactful project. All right, so next slide, and we'll move on.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me well?
We
Okay.
can. Yes.
So,
Yes.
okay, so I am right now with Georgia Southern since we just merged. So previously I was East Georgia. So if you're looking for my projects on ALG, it's gonna show up like East Georgia. And I have 2 more colleagues that help me with these ALG projects, Dr. Chevalier and Dr. Weddingkamp. I'm not sure if they are present today in the meeting. Let me, next please, next slide. Okay, so mostly I focus on biology courses, and I had started with the majors biology 1107, and then I moved to 1103. I try to keep it simple, doing the same kind of type of projects like involving adaptation and creation. So when I did the adoption, I just used the OpenStax textbooks. So I replaced Pearson and McGraw-Hill textbooks. And then I also used the YouTube videos. For adaptation, I had to use the PowerPoint slides that the OpenStax provides with the pictures and figures. And then for creation, I had to add explanations for all those pictures, figures. I also sometimes like to make like new drawings, new figures. So I inserted those there too. What else did we create here was assignments, and eventually we did change those assignments. We tilted them in the last project. We also created test questions. And some people will like to use the OpenStax questions. That's fine with me, but I like to be more focused on how I present in the class face-to-face. The LibGuides, yes, I had to create the LibGuides at some point, and then a master course that I share with the faculty. And I know Dr. Chevalier and Dr. Weddingcamp is using those biology 1103 master courses. And then at some point I did another project designing with OER that was not related to ALG, but I know Tiffany worked for ALG before, so I did it with her. So next, please. Let's see what else. When it comes to the impact, we did see some success with the 1103 test results. And we did see a lot of other things like everybody else with the DFW rates and, you know, but these are the ones that I really like. So I'm really interested in, can I make my students study without a study guide where they just like to copy words from textbooks or PowerPoints and put it on a piece of paper and they say, now I know, so I'm supposed to know something. No, I just want them to create, to use the PowerPoint slides by themselves, to use the YouTube videos by themselves, and then start thinking like, you know, like would be me, you know, like a scientist or something, somebody that knows biology. In 1107 though, maybe if I get the questions and I analyze each question, I'm gonna see some improvements. I'm not there yet, but overall, when I compare the exams grades, I didn't see better grades, but I did see that with 1103. So my question now is, why do I see that? And then another thing I've seen with the students using these OERs is I had more in time I had more in-class times for my activities. I have a lot of activities that I do with them. So I asked them to read the PowerPoint slides to come up with, you know, ideas, and let's transform this text into visuals and, you know, everything that you see here, role play, cell division, pipe cleaners, like a lot of hands-on activities, because that's what they like. So that's what I was trying to do. And more time, of course, is because we're switching from 100 PowerPoint slides per chapter to around 30 PowerPoints per chapter. I don't know how I did it, but it works. It's kind of like keeping the same kind of information, but less PowerPoint slides. Also, homework assignments and OER usage. Yeah, so I have some data that I'm going to present. That shows that most of the face-to-face students, they like to get involved with the PowerPoint slides. And the other one, the online students, they prefer mostly to get engaged with the YouTube videos. So that's very interesting, and you know, we can tell us like, what should we do next? How should we change something to make, you know, make them more successful? We are also looking at OER types in the future and how they are being used. I already discussed this face-to-face and online OER usage. So can we go to the next slide? I think that will be the last one. Okay, so the lesson that we learn is always we get the same questions. We need to reinvent the wheel from our colleagues. I don't know how many of us here are just have experience with ALGs and OERs, but think about this question if you have the chance, and what would you tell them? What would you tell all the people that they will say that I don't have time for reinventing the wheel or anything else? Is there anything, Nakita, or like somebody?
Nope, just letting you know that you kind of hit the 6 minute
We're
mark.
time.
And
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
6 minutes. Mhm.
Okay.
But you can finish
For
up. You're almost done.
yeah. Okay. So if you didn't do any ALG, so I will say just start with the and like the assessment, like what exactly are your objectives, like what do you want the students to know at the end, and then you go backwards, and then you're gonna see you have to kind of reinvent some of, change the wheel a little bit, and then if you don't want to do that, just they use the ones that we already have in the ALG database. Keep everything focused. Here's a list of all the things that I've done and all the things that I want to do. And if you want to collaborate with all of these projects, they are all here. And that's my contact information. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope the raised hand doesn't cause too much anxiety, but we appreciate you guys trying to stay to time. All right, Jeff, we'll move to the next slide.
Okay, hello everyone. It's Nandan Valiveria from UGA Physics and Astronomy. So this is a class I get to teach the introductory level Physics 1 for freshman students. And by the time before the pandemic, I have had this class and we were using the book publisher made videos and textbook, everything. It is about $65, $55 to $65 per student per semester. And during the pandemic, things have changed. And one of my buddies from Georgia State University, Shamir Abdin, then we talked about why don't we create our own videos. So we came up with the idea, yes, we can assign students to read the textbook, but in these days, who reads how many going to read that? So we thought we will create our own short pre-lecture videos. That's the step one you can see in this slide. And I have a background in physics education research. So what we did, we integrated in the Brightspace or the ELC, we have the Kaltura make us quizzes using the videos we have. I integrated short video every 2 to 3 seconds, multiple choice questions for students have to answer the question in order to proceed with the video. So before the class, I can get a sense of, it is auto graded through the ELC Brightspace quizzes. I can get a sense where the most students went good or struggling. Then when I get back to the classroom, I have so much time instead of reading all the slides, quick minute paper to overcome all the limitations students had, maybe a group discussion on one of the multiple choice questions. Many students did not get the point or did get the point confirmation, then can move on to many of the applications problem we can do in the class. So it is so much time saving to do hands-on activity than derivations we are going to do. So these videos are really quick, 6 to 7 minutes, 6 to 9 minute maximum, rough overview of what the concepts we are discussing in a given day. So the next slide, please. So this one is roughly some numbers I just did for another project calculating. So about over 300, 2,300 students use these videos and calculating around $55 to $65 per student. So this much saved. But the most important fact for me, this project, right after the pandemic, I started with one of the rounds of this Affordable Learning Georgia grant, and it ended up now I may have been in 7 to 8 grants with my colleagues, not just physics stuff. Now we are doing zero cost lab activities we are developing with my colleagues, and also astronomy projects. So for the astro faculty, they haven't had any education research ideas before, projects before. We are doing stuff and saving money for the students. And at the same time, the students who are in the classroom, the graduate students, they appreciate these outreach or the science communication type of projects. So most of these videos were recorded by the graduate students. I have discussed these topics with them. So I will highlight a couple of cases in the next slide, please. So in this case, I would highlight the lowest case I have had. One of the high school students, on the time when we started this project, he reached out to me. I believe he was from Peachtree High School, and he emailed me, do you have any projects I can do, learn about simulation programming? And has no any idea how to do the programming coding. And he is Michael Kai. He went to the Columbia University, did the undergraduate, and he did the student who started with no programming background, did the stuff for me in these videos, small simulations. He went for 3 undergraduate research assistantship or the research internship in the summer for quantum computing. The last time I heard from him, he's going to MIT, if not CU Boulder, to do PhD in physics in quantum computing. And one of the graduate students who was in this project recorded videos for me by the time he was an undergrad, and he came to do PhD education research with me. And one of the graduate students by the time he went to NASA and to do a fellowship, and he wants to be an astronaut. So some of these features were helping them. Students love it. Everyone involved in this project loves it. And the very last highlight, I mean, icing in the cake, on the cake, one of my colleagues, Nick Young, and I, we wrote an grant about the assessments and these pre-lecture videos. We got a NSF IU's grant last year to do this in a bigger scale. So thank you, everyone. That's all I have.
Okay, Jeff, we can go to the next slide. Here we go. So you're up.
Here. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Molly So, and I am from Dalton State. I am a professor and a doctor in the School of Education. So today my topic will be focusing on OER from resistance to persistence and the spread of love and the sharing our love for OER. Next slide, please. So I would like to focus on 2 main projects that I worked on with ALG funding support. On the left, on the slide, the first one is my project that was started in 2014. I'm one of the first ALG pioneers, I would say, to jump on this opportunity through our USG system and through our ALG, and working so closely with so much support from Jeff and his team at the time. This is one of the first projects I started, and I worked with Mr. David Brown, and he's still serving as an art librarian at Dalton State. So for this project, we focused on the learning theories. Basically, when I started this project, and my thinking is, well, I didn't like the one textbook that was passed around from the person who taught the class before me, and that was very expensive and very thick, and a very many of the units I could barely finish teaching. Expensive and many content, and I can barely teach over across a 17-week semester. So I was very fascinated, jump on this opportunity to be that first round in 2014, and it was getting in the funding to start this project. But after then I finished the project, and I realized, ooh, this is more than what I expected, right? You see that the cover, and on the left, the pinkish one, the cover was designed by my students. We got it to be so creative through this new textbook, and we learned to be flexible. We learned to be creative. We had so much fun, and it's the magic immediately in the classroom and turning around that relationship, learning atmosphere, and an engagement. So my students actually offered one of the students' artwork is with agreement. I was able to get the students' work to be used for the cover of this textbook. So that was a very fascinating experience and to start with. And then on the right of the slide, there is another textbook. And this was a couple years later, I realized that there was another need working with my students. So I'm in the School of Education. My background is teacher education. At the time, school systems were really cutting down, reorganizing the funding for the arts, and a lot of the places are already cutting out of the arts, and students basically are still needing arts even though funding was cut. But that doesn't mean art shouldn't be available. So I, based on the research, explored this opportunity with the ALG, and then to recreate it with my students and a colleague, David Brown again. for this textbook. It's called Arts Integration in Elementary Education. So for this project, we focused on the arts that could be used for integration to really innovate on teacher preparation. So at the time when I started, so things are going on in K-12, but not much has been ongoing with the teacher prep side. So I was the first, one of the earlier groups to get into this pioneer in this arts and integration and approach, and then I offered this textbook. And then my students really enjoyed it and they love it. And they got to be so creative. They didn't know as simple as arts and integration can create so much fun, learning, interactive, and engaging experience themselves when they are in this class and with their kids when they are teaching their lessons. So these are the two major ALG grants and then I worked on. I like to see when I started the project, basically my hope and my thinking is serve my needs to serve my students. My students on campus, they are Hispanic. We are Hispanic serving. We are also first generation driven institution. So in a way, even these just textbooks is saving, it's really helping them in many ways, and not only to help them in terms of just saving some money. In some cases, it's life-saving. They feel that's exactly what they need, right? What I didn't realize that these texts becomes projects later on. I got a phone calls and I got emails requesting to use the textbook. I got an MIT invitation to say permission to ask to see out of a courtesy because they know these textbooks are CC licensed, and they ask permission to use the 2130 textbook, Educational Learning Theories, and also got an invitation from a Southern a university in South Georgia to say they want to use this educational learning text for their graduate programs. They see a need. And what I didn't expect is I thought I was exploring this educational arts and integration approach for my teacher education program. But one day, one afternoon, I got an invitation. I got a phone call from a university in South Carolina asking for me and asking me the permission to see whether she could use this textbook for her teacher prep programs. And this is a big university in South Carolina and a big college of education. So amazingly, I realized that this is not just me and my students. It's expanded it to the world. So through these projects, I got to be so creative. I build relationship closer with my students, and we got to be fun, and we got to have a good learning time. And it's reflected in my student feedback. So this kind of experience expanded it to my professional community and I'm interacting with a larger community of professionals. And in 2019, I think another invitation come back from one of the small countries near Russia and asking for the translation into Russian of this educational learning theory book. And so you see that this type of a connection, this kind of collaboration really goes beyond the classroom. It's forging a community of love, a community of support, and a community of creative work. Next slide, please. So I want to finish up with the impact of the OER in my career life since 2014 and it lasted more than a decade. So I keep working on publishing, and then I published the book OER, Pedagogy and Practice in 2019. I'm currently working on another OER book, Current Issues in Education, to serve my students and the larger community out there. So I'm expecting this book will be out on an CC format to be in 2027. So thank you so much. That's me, Molly Zoe from Dalton State.
Wow, thank you so much. Jeff, we'll move to the next slide. All right, we just have two more.
Hi, Noel. Hello, everybody. It's a bit chilly here in my lab. You can see I'm in my research lab. So my name is Dmitry Beznosko. I'm here at Clayton State University, and I'm presenting this work done with my colleague Tatiana Krivashev here at Chemistry and Physics department. And it's one of those research grants that were just offered for the first time by the ALG. And this one focuses on instructors, right? So I heard a lot of great presentations how to help students and what they're doing. And this is a presentation on how to help us to teach those students and support their learning. And it's on a big topic that is everywhere today, that is the large language models that are typically called AI, even though I don't really like that name, but you know, it's already stuck. Next slide, please. So what is the idea? We do have AIs, and we know that there is a safety concern because you feed it your student data, you feed it your class data, your exam questions or something like this, and you don't know where and how they're going to be propagating in the cloud and where they're going to turn up. So therefore, we can use, and the thing is moving more and more towards smaller models that you can literally run at your home computer. Right? But the smaller model is not as, well, quote unquote, knowledgeable as the large one, even though it has the same engine to it, so to say. It can take the text, it can process it in the more or less intelligent way, it can change the formatting, it can produce code, but it doesn't have as much information as the big models do. So therefore, there is this option called retrieval augmented generation. Basically, it's a smaller database that is created on your computer from your materials you give to the system. And every time you ask a question or you ask a model to do something, the materials from that data set about your class that you create yourself are picked. Relevant pieces are given to the model that uses them to produce the answer. Not using what it has because it's a limited kind of shortened model, but uses the material you have provided it. Next slide, please. Oh yeah, I forgot to finish on that slide. That ensures the safety of both your materials. Thank you, and the safety of any student data that you're trying to feed it. And I will give an interesting example in a couple of slides. What I mean about student data as well. Thank you. Next slide. So this is an example of me generating a test. Well, at least a practice test. I wouldn't generate an actual test I give, but you know, many students come around and say, can you give us a practice exam, a practice test? It's really difficult to always produce many of them, and sometimes they ask for several, right? So nowadays, most of the laptops, and I just got my new laptop from our IT, it's already capable of running many local models, even fairly large ones, like 20 or 30 billion parameters in it. They can do marvelous things. They can do image recognition. They can even read student handwriting. And sometimes when I do the paper-based test, they give me the answers. Not necessarily I can read it. So I would photograph it, give it to the model, and ask it what is the most likely thing that is written here. And you'll be surprised how good those models are at actually describing me and guessing what the students have scribbled there. Now, as I already mentioned, RAG or retrieval augmented generation can provide your course materials to make it context and give problems in that context. And again, this is safe. So the example shown on this page is I effectively asked model, give me 5 questions on Newton laws for following the materials, and it has generated the questions. Now, if you will look very carefully, they do have a couple of mistakes, so you cannot just use it immediately, right? You do have to read through it, but then it is still much better than sitting there and making it on from your own mind. Next slide, please. All right, so this is kind of key takeaways that I have here. And I also give those examples, they didn't fit on a previous slide, so they're here, is the recognition, right? So it recognizes handwriting, and this is not the worst possible scenario. Just yesterday, I've seen a new model update recognize a thing that I couldn't even read 5 words out of, and you know, it was a whole paragraph, and it suddenly gave me Yeah, maybe missing 2-3 words, but I could at least read it, and that was already very much a progress at that point. But it can also help with the ADA, the disabilities, if you have any students with it, because it can literally describe what is in the image. And as you can see with the examples provided, it can even describe a lot of scientific stuff that normally most of the readers for disabilities have issues. So kind of to summarize, our AIs can be used in a safe and fast and responsible manner. And especially the more we continue, the more I see this happening now, even phones have them. And at some point, I don't think there will be any technology without AI embedded. It can definitely help instructors with everyday tasks and not only just, looking at students' work, but also grading it, producing rubrics, producing code or simulations. For example, I was teaching momentum. I asked the system to make me a simulation. I put it on a website in D2L. Students can now see how things collide at different parameters. You have to be aware of the model hallucinations as they, I'll be done in literally a few seconds. The smaller is the model, the more it tends to hallucinate. So if you would trust Copilot in a web, double check what was done on your computer. So as time continues, we need less memory. Technology develops, gets more reliable. Hopefully, we'll be able to use it more and more. All right, thank you. If there are any questions, you're welcome to email me at the email provided. I'm done.
Wow, thank you very much. And we'll move on to our last one, and we'll be ready for question and answers. So there we go.
Good. How are you? I'm Mariana Stone. I'm here with my colleagues, Sarah Hubble and Alvaro Torres Calderon. And we are working on, I took control. Can you see the slides change?
Yeah, now we can. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So we are designing for Spanish 102, which is elementary Spanish 2. And most of our university and actually the system uses Vistas Higher Learning, which is a quite expensive book, and is the textbook could be either paper or online, but it is in a separate platform. And we all focus on different things, but one of the things that interested me to get into the ALG was the fact that I think the students are suffering from fatigue of having to log into multiple things. They log in to D2L for our class, then they log into VHL for the textbook, and then they log into another platform for the lab. And even the students that pay for the book, they almost don't use it because it's another place to go to. Like one of you said, are they actually reading? We don't know. So what our goal here is, like everybody else's, eliminate the cost barriers for the textbook. Our savings amount to about $98,000 a year. But the difference of what we're trying to do is we're trying to incorporate students helping us develop the materials, and then we want to fully integrate it with the LMS. And I know that's a sort of a question mark for ALG. We have to produce a PDF or a Word that can be used by everybody. But what I keep trying to give the idea to ALG as a whole is that if this is Affordable Learning Georgia and every university in the university system uses the same LMS, which is Brightspace or D2L, one of the reasons why other departments in other universities have a hard time adopting materials, even though they are OER, is because they don't want to then have to develop everything for the LMS. So we are developing the PDF and the Word, but we're also developing parallel to that the LMS content. So hopefully, I think it'd be a great idea for ALG to try to have a way of having a course that can be imported by other universities. So let's just say I develop this course in PDF and in my LMS, I can actually send it to somebody at Georgia Southern. I could send it to somebody at Georgia State, because it is, I think, a barrier for adoption outside of our own university, even within the system, is when it does not, they don't give you all the parts for the LMS. But that's a side note. So one question that we asked when we were developing this is because it's not the year 2000 or even the year 1990 something where these things started coming up. So if we're going to develop an OER, let's not, like some of you said, not reinvent the wheel. What is out there? What are we doing different? Kind of approach it the same way we approach our dissertations. You know, what's out there? What could I add? What could I bring that is new? And in our case, and this is only for the past, for Spanish, so it doesn't really matter to anybody else. But what we're doing differently in our OER that is not done in the majority of textbooks is in Spanish to focus on narration in the past. They learn to narrate in the past. More traditional textbooks teach a particular tense first, which is called preterite, and then they teach the imperfect later. That's sort of the structure of most Spanish too. They teach a whole bunch of other things, but that's the main thing. We are approaching our OER sort of upside down, we say, or in a different order. And we have our research reasons, we have anecdotal reasons, we have experience that tells us to do this differently. And we're teaching the imperfect tense first and the preterite later. And in doing so, we're hoping to reach more students with their ability to narrate in the past. Now, the reason for that is because we think that traditional sequencing might contribute to why they have trouble acquiring it. And this is just specifically a linguistics issue that preterite and imperfect are an issue of aspect, not so much of tense. So we think that presenting it differently will give us a different path of acquisition. But really the main thing that we are doing is designing the text itself, designing the assignments, and building the assignments in a manner that can go straight into D2L. So I'm glad, Jeff, that you put there that you can look into it, because it would be fantastic, I think, to do a Brightspace zip download, because right now with I know you don't like to call it AI, but with AI, we can take code, HTML code within D2L and make it look quite nice. And if we could zip that to other people, it would be fantastic. Does that make sense? Or am I speaking too fast? That's
Nope,
it.
that's good.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Alvaro and Sara, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, I think you covered a lot of great ground there. I think one thing to add to what Mariana was saying about the pedagogical innovation here is that this is obviously very specific to language, and I know that a lot of you are working on projects that have nothing to do with Spanish language, but for students who are currently learning the preterite tense before the imperfect tense, they're taking several weeks to complete this acquisition because the preterite is much more complicated in terms of the conjugation patterns. There's a lot of irregularity, and so by introducing the imperfect first, not only are we kind of aligning ourselves with what applied linguistics research has found about order of acquisition, we're also giving students a tool to be able to begin to express themselves in the past by using a very simplified paradigm, which will allow them to grow in their communication skills at an earlier point in their their Spanish education process. So that's the only thing that I have to add. Alvaro, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Hello. Just basically what it was said already. I mean, the focus is to have the students to understand more naturally the sequence in the grammar learning, or not just only grammar, but the whole process of learning of language in this level. So I guess the order that we are proposing in this project will make the students improve their comprehension of the structure.
All right. All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, team. That was the last lightning project, and we kind of went a little bit over. So let's see, Jeff, the slides stopped sharing. So
Yeah, I'm not sure why that happened.
Well, the next slide was just the Q&A. We only have about 5 minutes left, and I do want to introduce Jeff and let him just have kind of a closing remark. So I'll give him 1 or 2 minutes, but if there are any, quick questions you want to drop in the chat, maybe we can address 1 or 2. And while you're thinking through it, I can maybe speak to Dr. Stone's question about the Brightspace zip download. You actually might be able to do that. I've done that before where there are packages. You can download packages for the Brightspace platform, and you can provide that as one of your files to ALG to provide on our repository. So we'll have a PDF version, we'll have the Word, whatever versions you have for the open, for people who don't use D2L or Brightspace, and then the packages for Brightspace zips that might work. Okay, so we've got a couple of questions coming in.
Okay,
technology,
so
go ahead.
So the homework part, I think we could submit it as a zip. I mean, we can submit the whole thing, but specifically the homework, because that's the part that a lot of people keeps them from adopting, is because the homework is not, most commercial textbooks have the homework platform. And that's what keeps them from adopting. So if we can provide it as a zip file from Brightspace, it would be great. Okay.
In addition, if any of your past projects, if you want to do a download of the package for D2L, we can always update your repository entry with an additional file. So we can definitely do that. And Jeff is answering the question in the chat about the next deadline to apply for grants. And that answer indeed includes the round 29. Actually, Jeff, that kind of goes into the next slide. Would you mind transitioning? Because you can kind of start from there and then wrap us up. But introduce yourself, though.
So I'm Jeff Gallant. I'm the program director for Affordable Learning Georgia. One way that you can keep up with us is to stay connected on the Affordable Learning Georgia newsletter. The newsletter is a constant contact newsletter, so let me see. If I paste this in, it's not actually going to be at affordablelearninggeorgia.org, but there is a link on our website at affordablelearninggeorgia.org to join the newsletter as well. If you stay connected there, when we are able to announce rounds of grants, you'll know about it first. You'll get it right through your email. We're also going to make sure that as soon as we announce them, the news is going to be on our page at affordablelearninggeorgia.org. So stay tuned for that. Just like any government program in Georgia, we cannot promise any funding that we do not yet have for the year. So we can't say, here's round 30, because we do not have money for round 30 yet, because the budget needs to be confirmed. That stuff will be a little bit later. Often we find that we're able to announce this in about early June. And thank you, Nikita, for sharing the website. Other ways to get involved past just the USG, to get out there into the national scene for things like open education. There's the Open Education Association. That's for individual members, instructors, instructional designers, librarians. If you want to get together and make a bigger difference nationally, join the OEA. The Open Education Network is a professional development network that we are a consortial part of as the USG. So they have professional development programs like the Publishing 101 that has been going on. They have cohorts on open pedagogy. They have certificates in librarianship for open education. Good stuff for professional development. The Spark Open Education Forum is an email listserv. It's a great way to your first jump in. It's really nice to join that listserv, because then you can see all the discussions going on. Hey, I haven't seen an open textbook for this before. Is there anything? And suddenly there are 5 of them. And be sure to find your local ALG champions on your campus. If you're interested in doing anything like our amazing superstars who had presented today are doing, talking with your champions is the first thing that I would recommend that you do. They are faculty, librarians, and instructional designers on your campus who know all about affordable resources and open resources and how to get started. Nikita, do you want to do a little bit on the closing here?
Well, I was one needs to come from you as the director.
Oh, okay.
But,
Well, yeah.
yeah.
Well, then I
Just
want to
to kinda
thank
give our
Nikita
credits.
for coordinating this, for coordinating ALG Week alongside the champions and a subcommittee of champions who have been at the core of planning this out. It's really nice to be featuring what our faculty have done with this, how to make stuff accessible outside of just the context of our big grant programs. So it's been really nice to do this for a whole week. So thanks to everyone who's been involved in this, including the planning committee, the subcommittees, with Nikita coordinating them as well. With our champions in general, who have been providing amazing feedback on exactly what they would want out of something like this. And of course, to all of our grantees and our project teams and the folks who have presented today and shared their experiences and their knowledge with the rest of you and the rest of the world as we share this out on video. So thanks so much to all. Our email addresses are right there, jeff.galan@usg.edu, nakita.faha@usg.edu. Contact us if you have any questions. Thank you so much. I will end the meeting here because it is 4. Y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.